There we go. All right, so we're on Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. I am that. And we are on chapter 51. And we're down at the question. And the questioner has basically just said that he does have moments of quiet in his mind, um, but that once a sense of danger sets in, I feel isolated. Right. So, Maharaj, we'll go ahead and cover that whole question there. Before that, Maharaj asks him, do you also feel that you can stand totally aloof from all transient things? Right? This is what we're trying to do on this path of Jnani here, is the silencing of the mind is quintessential to the path. They call it purifying of the mind, but that's basically quieting the mind by removing me and mine from it. And a new ideal is being placed here, and that is silent mind, a mind with no thought, as being the natural state of the mind, that when you need it, you employ it, but when you don't need it, you don't employ it. And that in that silence is your awareness of who you are and what you are. And that requires a subtlety and a lack of automatic mind, right? You don't, because that which you will realize in that silence can only remain in silence. You can't pull it out into the conscious mind to think about it. It can't be objectified. And so just that absolute stillness within, with your focus placed on itself, your awareness placed on itself, then you become aware of what Satchitananda actually means. And you can sense and know its aspects, not just through knowing. Yeah, not really an experience, but a knowing of fullness that's more subtle than the thoughts. That's why the thoughts become the veil of Maya, because they are much noisier than the subtlety of the reality of what you are. So he says, do you also feel that you stand aloof, totally aloof from all transient things? And our questioner says, well, yes, I do occasionally, but at once a sense of danger sets in. Now, this is interesting. Probably some of you have experienced that. I don't know if it's common for everyone, but it's definitely something that I went through and still am going through at the very fundamentals of the very core of my practice. I've kind of come to know that there's a terror underlying my attachments. And it's a terror that we're not conscious of because it's the terror that came to us at birth. that that suddenly finding yourself in this great unknown, in this little tiny capsule of a body that you're unfamiliar with, and that initially we didn't even know how to work it or what to do with it or what it was for. And in that wonder, in that, of course, the first expression in this world is a cry, right? That demonstration of like, someone take care of me, someone help me, help me, help me, right? And that underlies our day-to-day life. I mean, it's a substrate that keeps us clinging to life. It's the reason for our attachments and the reason for our ego. It's our ego is our self-created raft of driftwood that we've just been grabbing and picking up from anywhere we can as we've been floating through this sea, trying to protect ourselves with an idea of who we are, right? To protect ourselves from the unknown. And so we collect this idea of ourself, and that's what we live in, and that's what we take refuge in, and that's where we find our strength. And as long as we generally stay on the right side of the water, we're all right with that. We're content with that. But spiritual practice is asking you, as you lay there comfortable in your Jimmy draft, it starts asking you to take little pieces and throw them away. Right? Start dismantling this thing. And so you get about to dismantling this raft and you get it down to like the last three big logs. And then you're like, okay, done. Those three don't go. Right? And those are the sense of I, right? We hold on to the sense of I, the sense of meaning, the desire for meaning, and our okayness, right? Just three off the top of my head, the three last logs. And when you start kind of trying to work them loose, undo some of the old yarn you picked up to tie them together, you start becoming aware of a discomfort that you never really thought you had. You start becoming aware that the foundation of your attachment is not just liking them, it's being convinced that you desperately need them because your sense of identity is built on them. And without your identity, what are you? And that is the question of terror right there. To ask who I am and not have an answer is horrifying. Right? So he's touching it here. He says, yes, occasionally I do get that aloofness, but at once a sense of danger sets in. I feel isolated, right? We feel smallness. This is when the ego is still the main power within. And when you're doing your meditation in your mind and not from the heart, that's some of the things you're going to feel. You're going to feel isolated. You're going to feel horribly uninteresting. You're going to wonder where certainly the curiosity of life must have a value, right? Because you're slowly turning into a log, right? Because that ego is still blocking the light of your Satchitananda. It's not allowing your Satchitananda to express. And so that's the dark night of the soul. When you start dismantling your ego, but you haven't done it enough or not established enough in it, so that the light, the comforting and beauty of the light of self of Satchitananda isn't leaking through. It's not yet taking the reins from you. You're still being ego driven in your attempt to be egoless. You're still trying to do it somehow. And anytime there's doership, there's egoism. And so we know at some point we get to the realization that's why this is grace. That's why they say that this is grace, because as long as I try to do, I'm exercising my ego. And as long as I'm exercising my ego, I will not know who I am. And so he says, so I feel isolated outside all relationship with others. Right. And that is terrifying because that's where we get most of our information about ourselves, where we get most of our assurance. Everybody else is in just as bad a situation as I am. So here we go together. Right. And so this isolating aspect is also there. And, these are things that begin to drop away. And what we have to do is discern what were we getting from them and do I need that? Right? Is that necessary? And if you're not in love with the divine presence, then yes, all those things are always going to be necessary. To the degree that you know the presence within you, to that degree you'll be free from all of these requirements of your mind. I need friends. I need money. I need entertainment. I need a bigger TV. All these needs of refuges, places that we build for our safety and our enjoyment, right? And the trouble with them is, of course, take refuge in me alone, Thakur says. Jesus says, Buddha says, Rama says, take refuge in me alone. That means when you're lonely, you don't call up your best friend Betty and say, Betty, come over. Let's make sandesh for this weekend's event. that when you're angry, you don't go pour yourself a drink to relax, right? One refuge, one refuge. Can you possibly create a big enough relationship with your divine nature within to use it for freedom from all of your other refuges? Can you find a place within that's as good as that drink? That's as good as calling Betty. That's as good as going to the movies, right? This is the natural progression of things. You see, here lies the difference in our mentalities. And he's talking between himself and his teacher, obviously. He says with, oh, here we go, the Hindu thing. That's why I didn't like this. With the Hindu, the emotion follows the thought. Give a Hindu an idea and his emotions are roused. With the Westerner, it is the opposite. This is so untrue. This is why I don't like this stuff. With the Westerner, it is the opposite. Give him an emotion and he will produce an idea. Okay, whatever. Your ideas are very attractive intellectually, but emotionally, I do not respond. Yeah, we're going to leave that his problem because that's what Maharaj does. Maharaj says, set your intellect aside. Don't use it in these matters. Basically, he's saying, dude, you have so overthought this. What you say only makes sense within the realm of philosophy. Even if you try to bring it out as a real experience, immediately you're going to see how that's impossible. To have an emotion that's not sparked by a thought, that's not how Westerners are. And vice versa is not how Indians are. It's like anytime, and I say this out loud because there's a lot of conversation, and I have this conversation a lot, Hindu, Western, Hindu, because we're taking a philosophical and spiritual system that's been maintained by the Eastern world for thousands and thousands of years. And we're trying to take that and digest it, and so we're trying to take the stuff that's helpful to us in our cultural situation, and that's very disturbing. I know from my relationship with the order, it can be very disturbing for those who are traditionally Hindu, to see this beautiful thing put into a toddler's hands and he's pulling at it and stretching it and taking it apart, you know, coming up with strange ideas like Vedic Christianity. And, like all my monk friends are like, what are you doing? Exactly what is that? What do you mean? What are you, what is that? Right? And so we run into that. Set
Sorry,
your, yes,
sorry to interrupt, but I was thinking because we had this conversation last time too,
yes, yes.
that it could also mean Hindu doesn't mean a person who is more Hindu or believes in the philosophy. It means the innocent mind. That mind will not overthink.
Right. Yes.
So it could mean that too.
Yes, and we don't have to wrestle with it too much because he is just the questioner.
Hmm.
So he's not saying things that we have to really wrestle with much.
I
This
know.
this is his Zen Rama, and that's what I'm saying here, that Sri Nisargadatta's way of dealing with what he just posited is he doesn't pick up anything out of it. Usually he'll pick up something out of what was said. This time he takes the whole thing and pushes it off the table and says, set your intellect aside. Don't use it in these matters. This is a very important practice for us and understanding, right? It's why I tried to do a very different thing with the retreat this year. We don't need any more information. As lovely as this class is, and as much as I enjoy giving it, this isn't what we need. What we need is what you do after this class is over. How does this class and what we learn and read and study in it, does it stay with you through the day? Is it changing the way you perceive your time in the office? And the
So true.
class,
That's so true. So
yeah, right,
But
because the class, please.
on the other hand, though, it does maybe change you, and you don't even know how you're being changed.
That is true. That is true. And I'll agree with that so that I don't come back to a class of one next Thursday. but but it has its helpfulness because it's exposing ourselves to the truths, which is always helpful. But what's necessary for our realization is dumping the idea of our religion and its practices. Get rid of that idea. This is you and the beloved. There's no religion, there's no practices. There's you and your beloved. And this life is your puzzle together, your dance music. Your this yeah, yes, this life is your dance music, and for dancing with your beloved, and learning to do it successfully and gracefully, learning to live life effortlessly without fear, and surrendering to your dance leader, right? I used to love to ballroom dance, and I've had to learn how to lead and how to follow for different roles that I've played in, in theater when I was very young. And there's a wonderful, they both have leading and following are both obviously necessary. But it's such a wonderful situation when you have a great leader and a great follower as a couple, and the way that they can be harmonized, their movements, and pick up on each other's subtle nuances is what makes dance beautiful. It's that harmony of two people, completely enmeshed in their psyches. It's gorgeous. And so this is really what we want life to become for us. And so this is not religion. Religion and life are not separate, right? Your life is your practice, and your joy as a person is what determines whether that practice is a determinant for you to know whether that practice needs some tuning or not. And even then, the answer to needing that tuning, the only tuning that's ever required, is an increase of awareness, an increase of presence. That's the only power we have in our practice. It's not, you don't have to do more practice because you can't. Your life is your practice. You get what you get. You're not going to be able to do more practice than your life. And so what you do in your life is a continual effort to be more attentive, to be more present in your life. That's your practice. That's the essence of what you're doing in your practice. And that never ends. That should not become secondary, right? That is the practice. And so because life is practice and because practice never ends and life is religion, religion is not a thing, right? Religion is a redundancy. We already had a word for it. It's called life, right? And to begin living that way, that's what's necessary. Not more information, more attention. You can learn everything that we're reading from within your own self in silence. You could learn all of this in the first eighth of a second of touching the divine silence within you. Most of what is here would become obvious to you, right? The reason we can't experience that or don't experience it is because we keep going up here for our answers. We don't go to silence for our answer. And that's a bad habit. That's a broken habit. All right, so set your intellect aside and don't use it in these matters. Questioner, of what use is an advice which I cannot carry out? These are all ideas, and you want me to respond feelingly to ideas. For without feelings, there can be no action. This is a terrible delusion he's under. this, this is a terrible delusion he's under, right? First of all, he's created an impossibility for himself because look at the narrative he's created for himself. What use is advice that I cannot carry out? Okay. Do you see that problem? That's an impossibility. Of course, because you're right. If you can't carry it out, the advice is useless. So either that's the truth and don't ever take advice and give up, or realize you've created a negative narrative for yourself that's untrue. That this advice can be carried out for the very reason and fact that you're sitting in front of a guru who has carried it out. So it can be done. That's the whole point of the guru. That's why you spent your ticket to get all the way from the West, wherever you came from, to India to sit at the feet of Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj and ask him for impossible advice. But it's not impossible, right? And that's the thing. Don't create narratives of negativity for yourself. Simply don't accept them. Narratives and a pure moment cannot coexist. A subject, object, verb cannot exist in the moment. It needs the past, it needs the future, which means it's a delusion, right? So don't assume that this advice one, don't assume you've heard it before. Two, don't assume that it's difficult. Don't assume that you can't do it, right? Part of being like a 5-year-old child, like Jesus says, unless one becomes like a child, he cannot enter the kingdom of God. What does that mean? That means to be able to accept something for the first time again, right? And so to read scripture, each time you read it, it's the first time. It's the first time. So read it with that same attention and that same openness and that same wonder. Every time you meditate, it's the first time. So sit down and enjoy it as the first time. Right? That was the practice of the man who stood in front of the waterfall every day that Ramakrishna talked about. He stood there from sun up to sundown every day. That was his practice, to look at the waterfall and see it again every moment for the first time, and just continually praise the divine. Ah, how beautiful. Ah, wow, how wonderful. Right? To go back to seeing that waterfall for the first time, so that the mind, the ego mind, doesn't strip out its beauty to make it ordinary, strip out its wonder to make it an object, right? But to keep it full of consciousness, full of unpredictability, full of the wonder that you recognized when you first looked, right? So we try and do that again, always. So what use is advice that I cannot carry out? Well, don't think that way. That's the advice. These are all ideas, and you want me to respond feelingly to ideas. No, definitely he does not want you to feel or have an emotion toward these ideas. That is not at all the goal. That is of no consequence one way or the other. In spiritual life, if feelings come or if they don't come, makes no difference whatsoever, right? Are you focusing your mind on the beloved? Everything will come of its own accord. If you start saying that you got to have feelings come up behind it, that becomes your attention instead of the Lord, instead of the presence. If you think you need to feel bliss to guarantee it, then that becomes the focus and not the presence. The one thing you need to do is keep your awareness on the presence of God, or keep your awareness on itself, on awareness, right? That's the only thing necessary. You want me to respond feelingly to ideas, for without feelings, there can be no action. No, action comes from love alone, and love is not feelings, right? There often are feelings around love, but love itself is not a feeling. All right. Maharaj, why do you talk of action? He's just going for the root here. Why do you talk of action? Are you acting ever? Some unknown power acts, and you imagine that you are acting. You are merely watching what happens without being able to influence it in any way. Right? This is the reality. You have never been anything but a watcher. Right? All of the doership is delusional. The only thing now, so we say that and we're like, oh my God, there's no free will. Oh my God, what's the point of everything? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's relax. You're reading a book. Everything is predetermined. There is no action happening. But read the book. You'll enjoy it. It'll be a wonderful ride through life. Because what are we watching? We're watching God unfolding infinitely in the moment. Unending change. Right? And this no action thing. You say, well, Ramakrishna says that we're the goat on the rope, right? Since we're talking about this in the last few weeks, it seems. We're the goat on the rope. Well, where's my 10 feet in this situation? They've taken away my 10 feet if all I am is a watcher. Well, what you do get to control. What is your 10 feet? That 10 feet you get to control is where you place your attention. You're watching, but what are you watching? That's your 10 feet of free choice, your free will. What are you paying attention to that's going through the mind? It's your choice to put your attention here, to put your attention there, to put your attention there, right? And all of those will unfold more stories. And that's what gives you a sense of doership, because there is some reaction, it seems, but it's not really reaction. It's just you're giving life to whatever you settle your attention on. That becomes what is, right? And that's your choice. So if you're having a lusty thought and you place your mind on it, that will be your experience for that day, right? You have the delightful thought of the beloved and such a wonderful stillness inside. So you, ooh, I love that stillness. I'll just place my attention on that stillness. Well, then that stillness will begin to unfold for you. Whatever you touch, you are that divinity. Whatever you touch blooms, grows. And this is why we want to practice our focus and our concentration so that we don't touch the things that are not helpful to us. We don't touch the weeds of the mind. We touch the beauty of the mind, which is its essence, the presence, God, or that divine nature.
But aren't the weeds also, in a sense?
In a sense, and there will come a time where that will be a realization. But until we know that, we can't practice that because, weeds will do what weeds do. They'll take over and choke out the rest of the garden.
I feel like there's different ways of of looking at things that, I mean, I guess the story I think of Nehushtan in the Old Testament, where the cure for the venomous snakes is to look at the head of the snake and I think be, reminded of what's beneath, and of just that sometimes the things that we're internally, afraid of, or that maybe we perceive as weeds are actually important to look at.
Uh, at some point, and when that time comes, that will happen. But really, none of them are important. All weeds require other weeds to be defined. You can't mine the mind for truth.
But you can mine the mind for its own illusions and to understand what they are. I mean,
No, because you have no way of validating what the mind will tell you. The mind has that interpreter module that it is constantly running to create relationship between things, but it has no interest in truth. It doesn't care actually at all whether its relational appearances are true or not. It simply comes up with constant explanation. That's why arguing can be so infuriating, because there's no way to arrive at truth through that, unless both people are committed to truth,
well,
and
there's
have.
different ways of arguing, right? Like
Yes, it's
may
true.
not have a different, right, a whole like we have a concept of arguing as a dualistic, somebody's right, but that is one concept of argument.
Hmm. Yes, but either way, you'll be trapped in the world of ideas as long as you're looking to the world of ideas for explanations. We want to get out of that world because that is our delusion, that world of ideas. The moment has no ideas. The moment is silent and pure and full of an infinity of subtlety that we cannot hear as long as we inhabit the world of ideas. So ultimately, we have to get out of the world of ideas. Now, part of getting out of the world of ideas is discernment, going in and looking clearly at the experience of being, not the experience of thinking, but the experience of being. To understand, I am not my thinking. I am not the contents of my mind. I am not this body. I'm silence. And to be able to get that perspective of separation from mind, and then the mind will collapse in on itself. You will realize that the mind is purely relative, and without you as the absolute, placing yourself in there as a thought of the absolute, the mind, everything is relative. So there is no big, no small, and it will just collapse. That's what happens. I'm assuming at realization. It's the collapse of the relativity of the mind, because you understand that there was no original truth that was built on, that your whole mind is built on the misnomer, on something that doesn't exist, the idea of me and mine. And so every thought in the mind is born of inaccuracy. That's why there's waves. That's why there's tumultuousness. That's why there's a constant flux of thinking, because there is no stability in thought. Thought will never justify itself and never explain itself in truth, because it's built on a concept that does not exist. Me, mine. Without me and mine, all thought ceases. Right? All thought ceases. Why do you talk of action? Are you acting ever? Some unknown power acts, and you imagine that you are acting. You are merely watching what happens without being able to influence it in any way. Well, why is there such a tremendous resistance in me against accepting that I can just do nothing? Maharaj, but what can you do? You are like a patient under an anesthetics and whom a surgeon performs an operation. When you wake up, you find the operation over. Can you say you have done something? Questioner, but it is me who has chosen to submit to an operation. Maharaj, certainly not. It is your illness on one side and the pressure of your physician and family on the other that have made you decide. You have no choice, only the illusion of it. Questioner, yet I feel I'm not as helpless as you make me appear. I feel that I can do everything I can think of, only I do not know how. It is not the power I lack, but the knowledge. See, this is our trouble, right? That's a good. Here he's made a really good point. Maharaj, not knowing the means is admittedly as bad as not having the power, right? Okay. But let us drop the subject for a moment. After all, it is not important why we feel helpless, as long as we see clearly that for the time being, we are helpless. Right? This is how ego is. The very beginning of ego is this very thought. I can do. Anytime do is in the framework, know that egoism is driving, right? And the ego, as we know from Thakur's teaching, from Buddha's teaching, from Jesus's teaching, is error. It's a wrong concept. You made a mistake in thinking that you were this ego self, because the ego requires doership, requires a body, requires a mind, and requires you to be fully convinced that you are that one triad, body, mind, self, that's what you are, right? So he says, yes, not knowing the means is admittedly as bad as not having the power. If you don't know the truth, then what good is there, in it? But let us drop the subject for a moment. After all, it is not important why we feel helpless, as long as we clearly see that for the time being, we are helpless. Right? This is the only way the ego dies, is when the ego stops taking the steering wheel from the divine within you that you are still trying to touch and find. That's Satchitananda. He goes on. This is Maharaj speaking. We're going to get some personal stuff here. I am now 74 years old, and yet I feel that I am an infant. I feel clearly that in spite of all the changes, I am a child. My guru told me that child, which is you even now, is your real self, your swarupa. Go back to that state of pure being, where the I am is still in its purity before it got contaminated with I am this or I am that. Your burden is of false self-identifications. Abandon them all. All right? There's no reason in wondering, why did I identify with this way? Why am I thinking that way? Why am I? You'll never know why. You'll never know why. And the mind will give you as many reasons as you ask for, and they will change every time. Ask yourself why you are the way you are today. Write it down for a paragraph, put it away, forget about it, come back in a year, do it again. It goes nowhere. It goes nowhere. Self-awareness goes somewhere. That's becoming aware of this self that's unchanging. That will untie the knots. That will allow you to see the nature of the mind. That will betray truth to you. But to get there, you have to step outside of the mind. You have to remove yourself from the world of thought, right? And become the observer of thought. Very important switch there. So he says, return to this idea of being a child, that child in you, right? That pure self, and be simply present in the moment. Don't have a past. That's one of the things that a child is so free. They don't have much idea of a past at all. They don't sit there and talk about, when I was a baby, I was once rolling over with the blanket and I had this funny thought. It doesn't happen. They're not thinking about their past. Children will think a lot about their future, mostly because all the grown-ups in their life will force them to. Oh, what are you going to do? What are you going to become? What do you want to be when you grow up, right? We ruin them from the very beginning. We take them out of their childhood and suddenly have them being firemen and policemen and cat owners and whatnot for the rest of their life. He's saying, come to the place of just being. In this moment, accept the reality of the moment. If there's no past, right, it's purely conceptual. You've created it in your mind. If that was unreal, then in this moment, nothing is defined for you. Everything can be new. Everything can be its first time with you. And the wonders and the appreciation of it and the depth of it can stay fresh with you. Right? And with this awareness in that moment, once you get rid of the narratives that you're tangled in and that you're trying to answer, once you get yourself untangled from those, you can see the relativity of all of them, that they are a network of imaginings, of assumptions that were incorrect. And that becomes obvious to you. And then they begin to resolve. When you get out of the middle of them and stop holding them all up with your false idea of you, right? And step out into the silence and look back at them without being in the middle of them, then you see, then you understand, right? Go back to that state of pure being where the I am is still in its purity before it got contaminated with I am this or I am that. Your burden is of false self-identifications. Abandon them all. My guru told me, trust me, I tell you, you are divine. Take it as the absolute truth. Your joy is divine. Your suffering is divine too. All comes from God. Remember it always. Now, this is very interesting. This is a Gyani path, and we're having a realized Gyani talk to us. And what did he just say? All comes from God. All right, so Gyani is not a path without God. Gyani is a path without you. God alone is real. That's what Jnana is. That's what it is to know the truth. My guru told me, trust me, I tell you, you are divine. Take it as the absolute truth. Your joy is divine. Your suffering is divine too. All comes from God. Remember it always. You are God. Your will alone is done. I did believe him and soon realized how wonderfully true and accurate were his words. I did not condition my mind by thinking, I am God, I am wonderful, I am beyond. I simply followed his instruction, which was to focus the mind on pure being, I am, and stay in it. I used to sit for hours together with nothing but the I am in my mind. And soon peace and joy and a deep, all-embracing love became my normal state. In it all disappeared. Myself, my guru, the life I lived, the world around me. Only peace remained and unfathomable silence. Wow. That is beautiful right there. So let's go. This is what his guru told him. I'm just going to read this again. It might be helpful if you want to just soak it in for a second. My guru told me, trust me, I tell you, you are divine. Take it as the absolute truth. Your joy is divine. Your suffering is divine too. All comes from God. Remember it always. You are God. Your will alone is done. I did believe him and soon realized how wonderfully true and accurate were his words. I did not condition my mind by thinking, I am God, I am wonderful, I am beyond, right? So this isn't about a condition of mind. This isn't about going in and calculating and analyzing something, right? I did not condition my mind by thinking, I am God, I am wonderful, I am beyond. I simply followed his instruction, which was to focus the mind on pure being, I am, and stay in it. Just isness. Keep your awareness on your isness, your existence, your amness, right? Stay in it. I used to sit for hours together with nothing but the I am in my mind, right? And that's the part that terrifies us. Oh my God, hours of just sitting there doing nothing but being aware of my I am, right? We think, well, what's that going to do for me? Well, this is what it does for you right here. I sat with nothing but the I am in my mind, and soon peace and joy and a deep, all embracing love became my normal state. There was no cause for it. He became aware of his isness, the nature of his being, right? Not by being told anything, but by suddenly becoming aware of a normal state, which was peace, joy, and a deep, all embracing love. Became my normal state. In that, everything disappeared. That was such a consuming inner isness that in it, his myself disappeared, his ego disappeared, his concern about himself as a particular disappeared. My guru, God, his teacher, was no longer separate from him. The guru was now the experience of being because it is Satchitananda, right? Peace and joy and a deep, all-embracing love became my normal state. In it all disappeared, myself, my guru, the life I lived, the narrative that I had believed about myself, that fell into it. The world around me, which was separated from me in error, right? So those four things all fell into his isness. And that's where he saw the oneness. That's where he found reality, right? And he never had to leave that place again because it was natively his from the beginning, as it is natively yours from the beginning. But you have to accept it. You have to let go of the narratives of your own mind, those things that make you special, those things that make you different, those things that make you unique. You have to let go of them. And it's very difficult. I'm 60 years old. I have invested 60 years into my delusions. When it comes time to let go of them, I have to sit there and think, oh my God, I have 60 years in this. That makes it very difficult to let go of. All right? To think, oh my Lord, I've gone the wrong direction for 60 years. There must be something here I can salvage. No, there isn't. Let it all go. Be fresh in the moment. Return to the ignorance of a child, not the ignorance of an adult. The ignorance of a child, which is caused by mere presence, right? Their simple lack of narratives that tell them they should be something else or something different, right? I've got to get more stories. But that's the whole story of that kid in the Pope's chair that I always tell, right? That's the difference, right? The ignorance of an adult will get you arrested if you try to sit in the Pope's throne. But the ignorance of a child will get everybody to think how adorable that is, how wonderful. In his absolute naivete, he climbed up and sat in the Pope's chair as if it was any other chair, because in his world, it was any other chair. And as soon as you return to the world where the Pope's chair is any other chair, then you're free to sit there too, right? I used to sit for hours together with nothing but the I am in my mind, and soon peace and joy and deep, all-embracing love became my normal state. In it, everything disappeared, myself, my guru, the life I lived, the world around me. Only peace remained, and unfathomable silence. Right. That's silence. I'm all about that these days. There's that has been such a beautiful thing to stumble upon or to learn in these last couple of months. That silence, it's one of those funny things because we see it as an absence. To sit in silence is to sit in emptiness. Oh, it's an absence. No, it is not an absence, right? It's the fullness of the moment, which isn't an absence and yet is an absence because the moment is not big enough to contain anything. All right, the moment is a sliver, it's a piece of rice paper, although it's never ending, no beginning. And so it contains everything, and yet there's nothing there to contain anything. That's silence. That's the definition of silence for us. Yes, it's an absence of activity, it's an absence of expression, but it's an infinity of content, an infinity of possibility. Right? Every moment. You've created your life out of this moment. I've created my life out of the same moment. Right? It's like Mary Poppins' magic tote bag that she remember when she first moved in into the nursery where she's taking care of the kids, and she has her black bag and sets it on the table. And at first she's pulling out reasonable things, some gloves, a hat. Then she pulls out a big giant lamp and sets it down. Then she pulls out a chair. The kids are like, oh. That's the moment we're all living from. Mary Poppins's bag, right? And so see the wonder of that. Your life is Mary Poppins' bag. And look at what you've pulled out of it and what you've created from it, and how different and wonderful that is from what everybody else has created from it. But understand there's only been one creator, and you are that. Not just the particular line in the book you've written for this life, but the summary of all lives that have been written are the same potential that you carry with you in this moment. Every life, every story of love, every story of Satchitananda that every life writes is yours in ultimate. All right. We'll do one more question and response. It all looks very simple, the questioner says, and easy, but it is just not so. Okay. Please don't do this to yourself. Please don't do this to yourself. Your realization is difficult only because it is nothing that needs to be done. It's a trick. It's a trick problem. It doesn't really exist. And the difficulty is only because you keep treating it like a regular problem that you can fix. But your very need to fix it is the problem. You see, so it's a catch-22, which does not mean it's impossible and doesn't mean that it's a paradox and therefore untrue. What it means is that you need to reconsider your place in the problem. You are not in the problem, right? The problem does not have a reality. The problem exists because you have misdefined yourself as the fixer, misdefined yourself as the impure one, misdefined yourself as ignorant. You are not. None of those things. So don't start these narratives. Become aware of these narratives because they are the thing that are giving you so much misery. Drop the narratives of the mind. They aren't true. They're relatively true because you've stored lots of other things in your mind to support them. That's what makes you the personality you are. But that is not the value of you. That is not the beauty of you. The beauty of you is before that light of awareness, that light of love, that light of wisdom. It all looks so very simple and easy, but it is just not so. Sometimes the wonderful state of joyful peace dawns on me, and I look and wonder how easily it comes and how intimate it seems, how totally my own. Where was the need to strive so hard for a state so near at hand? This time, surely, it has come to stay. Yet how soon it all dissolves and leaves me wondering, was it a taste of reality or another aberration? If it was reality, why did it go? Right? If it was reality, why did you go? It didn't go anywhere. Maybe some unique experience is needed to fix me for good in the new state, and until the crucial experience comes, this game of hide and seek must continue. Maharaj, your expectation of something unique and dramatic, of some wonderful explosion, is merely hindering and delaying your self-realization. You are not to expect an explosion, for the explosion has already happened at the moment when you were born, when you realized yourself as being, knowing, feeling. There is only one mistake you are making. You take the inner for the outer and the outer for the inner. What is in you, you take to be outside, and what is outside, you take to be you, to be in you. The mind and feelings are external, but you take them to be intimate. You believe the world to be objective, while it is entirely a projection of your psyche. That is the basic confusion, and no new explosion will set it right. You have to think yourself out of it. There is no other way. Right? And so this thinking ourselves out of it, that is our discernment. And that discernment is what leads to our separation from mind. And once you've got that separation from mind, the thinking your way out of it stops. You simply burn that awareness onto the moment, and the knots of your delusion will untie themselves at that point. But you have to discern, you have to think your way out of it. Really, it's not a thinking your way out of it as much as it's a discerning, watching very carefully how your mind talks, what it says to you, where those ideas come from. Watch them. Don't have an opinion on them. Don't have an agenda around them. Just observe them. That will be enough. That objectivity of observance with no calculation will be enough for them to untie themselves. Oh, wow. Look, I've believed that. Because I'll tell you, you can know that you tell yourselves more stories in a day than what you think you do. And the ones that you're aware of are just the low-hanging fruit. As soon as you pick those or get those set aside, you'll see that there's a whole tree of assumptions that you live by in your day that are not true. And you won't have to do anything about them. You'll just have to see them for the first time. And when you do, you'll be surprised. Wow, that's a lot of stuff, right? But you shouldn't have even said that because it's not your stuff. It's just stuff. And your observation of it will clear it because you are the truth that you're seeking. You are already the perfection that you're looking for. It's because you've overlaid it with a story that you are not that you have a trouble with it. All right, we're past time once again.